So I went in there and I thought I was flushing the chain and I set off the fire alarm. Well, for so long, Melwood has been the home for Liverpool Football Club. Training, we've seen all the pictures throughout the past of, all the managers that have been there and players. And this weekend, it came to an end. So a sad day, I think, for most Liverpool fans. And we saw the players posting some poignant pictures as they move on to the new training ground. Dave, I'll start with you. I mean, we all know about Melwood before you actually get there. It's this mystical place when you walk in for the first time. What was it like for you when you walked through those doors at Melwood, and what are some of your fondest memories of being inside there?
Yeah, I remember going to Melwood for the first time when I worked, just sort of started at Liverpool, working for the club, for the website, and after a couple of weeks of sort of working at Chapel Street, which is a little bit more dry and away from the football side of things, finally got the chance to go to Melwood. And yeah, it's just crazy, really. It's such a magical place. I know, watching Liverpool growing up as a kid, you just think, and you get to go to Anfield and you get to see all that side of things. But Melwood seems like the secretive place that you might not get access to anymore. And then to walk through the doors and see, straight on reception, the European Cups there and sort of all the, paraphernalia they have around, sort of marking all the great players that have been there, the great managers, and just knowing that you're in the rooms or you're in the sort of same training area that Bill Shankly had been in and Bob Paisley and all those greats. It's just phenomenal. And I do, so many great memories from there. Just, so many laughs just with my colleagues and stuff and moments. I remember, Jurgen Klopp coming in. That was sort of a big moment in my Melwood memories of working there. And I remember sort of, one of the things that sticks out to me is watching pre-season training up close. Literally stood at the side of the pitch watching the start of pre-season training. The sun's beating down. It's just beautiful. And you're thinking, how have I got here? Eating lunch, sat on the balcony watching them train as well. That's just, moments where you sort of pinch yourself. And then, the one thing that sticks out is probably Jurgen Klopp in early sort of stage, just sort of come in. And remember we sat away in a room upstairs where we used to work, and he comes in. He was coming in at that time to sort of smoke outside because he didn't have a balcony out from the manager's office. So he'd come down the hall into the office, and he sat there having a cigarette with the door open, and sort of turns to us and starts asking us about the Merseyside derby and what the atmosphere is like, what the game's like. Is it, comparing it to sort of Dortmund v Schalke, which was his experience of derbies up to that point. And yeah, you just sat there chatting with the manager of Liverpool Football Club, one of very few men to have ever held that role, and he's just having a cigarette talking to you about football. It's just one of those moments you sort of always remember. It's just incredible.
Yeah. For me, Dave, the way you explain it is how I feel it is. It almost has a sense of community. It is a little bit smaller than when you go to some of the other clubs. You go to, Carrington and Manchester United, and it's vast, and it feels a little bit disconnected. But Melwood, Matt, for me, it just always felt like so close. Everybody kind of knew each other. It just had that, neighborhood kind of feel, if that makes sense. What are some of your best memories, Matt?
Well, my first memories was when you could actually go, and this is back in the 90s, and Roy Evans was manager, and you could just turn up, and it was only a certain couple of weeks in pre-season and for a certain time, and you just turned up and you went in the old entrance, which was before Melwood got redesigned under Gerard Houllier, and you watched training, and David speaks about training, but it was very different then. It was very much just like the cardio work. And then the players would come along, sign everything and anything, and very different to now, where some supporters can go, but it's all very done through partners and sponsorships and that kind of thing. So, my first memories were Steve McManaman, people like that, being in awe of those. But then I was fortunate enough to be one of the fan media that went when Brendan Rodgers first got appointed. So that was like the inner workings of actual Melwood, and Brendan was, kind enough to give us well over an hour of his time, and almost got carried away with himself, as Brendan and ended up bringing out a flip chart and literally drawing the tactics for the next game, which was Sunderland away.
I saw that episode of The Office. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, exactly. Very much like that. So yeah, it was fantastic, and just a privilege to say that I've been, like David said, to be at Melwood and to watch training firsthand, and things like, even before he became assistant manager, but Pep in Linders and the role that he had, like, I don't think people quite realised how hands-on and how influential he was, even when he was just sort of the first team development coach or whatever his crazy title was. That was always interesting. It's really a shame that leaving Melwood has happened during the middle of a pandemic, because I'm sure I speak for anybody that's had the privilege like ourselves to be able to have gone to Melwood a couple more times and to have been there on the final press conference would have been a great memory, a great moment. And I imagine that during normal times, the club would have put on tours for Melwood, and maybe that would still be something that they'll look to do. That's just me thinking out loud, but they did do Melwood tours in the summer a couple of years ago, so maybe it's something that they will try and have once it's all fully transitioned over and before Melwood itself disappears. But that would be great for supporters to have that opportunity and sort of to go through and see what it was like. And the concern now is, obviously you touched on it, Keith, about it feels different to other training grounds. Do you feel like that will be an issue now to go into a new super massive complex? Do you feel like that might be something that we need to ensure we retain somehow?
I think, Dave, you can touch upon this given your close-up relationship and working with the club. For me, it's, you can get wrapped up in the surroundings and the buildings, but it's definitely the people that make, these places special. And I think when you have someone like Jurgen who understands people, who communicates with people so well, for me, Liverpool will move on. And you look at Jurgen, he's not the type of guy that looks back and that was great. It's, wow, this is exciting. This is going to be the future. So yeah, I think for a moment you look back, but it is an exciting new time. Liverpool have a new setup where everything's, centralized. And Dave, I think Jurgen, he'll miss it. But I think, again, it's the people that make, Liverpool special, and it'll make the new training ground special as well.
Yeah, absolutely. He said himself, hasn't he, that all those people are coming along for the ride and they'll all be at the new place in Kirkby. I think, it's something Liverpool had to do as well, isn't it? It is sad to sort of leave Melwood behind and all that history, but the fact is that, they could get by with it for now, but it's obviously looking towards the future. They needed a better and a bigger facility with more sort of equipment and more, they've changed the way the whole training ground's laid out, and that closer relationship with the academy as well is, I think, an important factor here. So, yeah, it is a shame, but I think it'll be, I think we're all looking forward to the idea of going seeing the new place when, obviously, hopefully this whole pandemic calms down and see what it's like at Kirkby. And, I'm in that same light, really. I think sort of, sad to be leaving Melwood, but also excited for what the future holds. And I'm also hoping that the Wi-Fi is slightly more reliable in Kirkby as well.
Well, you know what? We'll be the best team if it's ever windy, because Kirkby is the windiest place I've ever been in my life. You can be in Liverpool, there's absolutely no wind. You go out to Kirkby for an academy game and it's like unbelievable. So we'll definitely be set up for that. That will never be an excuse again. But Matt, you had asked me before about, my memories, and I completely forgot. My first time I went to Melwood was before the Carling Cup final in 2012. John Henry had set up, to go over and do some interviews. So I got to interview Pepe Reina, Glenn Johnson. But Kenny was there, and I know Paul quite well. And I said, Kenny will do a sit-down interview. And John said, not a problem. The manager will do a sit-down, not knowing that Kenny doing a sit-down interview, no chance, not at that time. So I get to Melwood. Before I even get there, I go into, the press room, the little bathroom by the kitchen. So I went in there, and I thought I was flushing the chain, and I set off the fire alarm.
Oh.
So it was like the red, and I set it off, and I walk out, and literally the first person there is Cara. And I went, sorry, Dino. And he went, don't look at me, I didn't do it. And kind of like, and I was going, are you kidding me? My first time in Melwood, I'm in 10 minutes. And the alarm was loud. I mean, really loud. I remember Damien Comoli, I believe, was there, kind of looking around to see what was going on. And I'm going, please get me through this. Because Matt McCann had just come in before and left. I'm going, just get me through this. Get this alarm. And finally, the alarm is taken off. But I remember I'm there with my cameraman, and Kenny comes in and he goes, look, I'm not going to do a one-on-one. My daughter works in the industry. I don't even do it. I'm not going to do it for you, but I'll bring you on a tour if you want. And I said, yeah, great. So we walk around. He brings me. I mean, it was unbelievable. You're like, as I'm walking around, he's talking, but in my head, all I can think is like, King Kenny showed me around. Like, I'm almost missing what he's saying, you know? But I always remember right at the end, he goes, come out, we'll watch it first couple of minutes of practice and everything. I says, oh, my, thank you so much, Kenny. But my cameraman was with him, big Geordie guy, and he happened to lift the camera up, but he wasn't on or anything. And Kenny was like, and have you got that camera on? And my cameraman was like, no. It was just, Kenny went from like the nicest guy to tell him to turn that off. It was it was funny. But yeah, I have so many good memories. I mean, filming out in the indoor field, which is the most Baltic place on earth as well.
Yeah.
There's nothing indoor about it because it's freezing. But yeah, I mean, it's a great place, special people, and we're going to miss it. But having said that, I'm excited to see the new setup as well, man.
Good question I wanted to ask you, David, was we've heard about this meeting that Klopp had with like all the staff when he first joined the club. And, it was apparently Carol and Caroline from the canteen and literally every person from the first team kit manager to the gate man. Was you in attendance at that meeting, and what was the atmosphere like?
Unfortunately not, because we were mostly based in Chapel Street. We always split our time anyway. I didn't quite make the cut for that introduction, unfortunately. But yeah, which is a shame because I would have loved to sort of been part of that. But we did, we were there sort of semi-regularly, so we used to, have our lunch there quite a lot, and sort of, those are some of the best memories as well. Is just sitting around, sort of, you sat at the table with the players or some of the coaching staff and just listening to them giving each other stick, and everyone, you talk about that sort of homely atmosphere. Is that there was never a case of you'd go and sit down for your lunch and everyone would be like, who are these guys? Or, everyone's so welcoming. It is a small staff there. So, everybody knew everyone, including us, even though we weren't there every single day. We were well known around the place. And it just a fantastic atmosphere. And I think that is the one thing that they'll try and emulate in Kirby, even though it's a different facility, is to sort of keep that atmosphere going and keep it such a nice place to work, because I'm sure everyone from the players through to the chefs and the coaching staff thinks the exact same thing about it. It's just a great place to be.
I'll ask both of you this one. Who is the one player likeliest to, after the international break, drive to Melwood completely forgetting that we're in a new training ground?
David, I will say to you first. Give me some time.
Well, Alberto Moreno doesn't play for Liverpool anymore, unfortunately. He would have been the easy option, I think. They're all pretty switched on these days. I think maybe one of the younger kids might, Curtis Jones or someone might just and made their way to Melwood. But yeah, it's, now Alberto's gone. I can give him a kick in. So yeah, maybe he would have been the one who's still there.
Yeah, I was actually going to say Curtis as well, and especially because it's probably closer for him to get to. But for a lot of the other players, I think that Kirby will actually be easier to get to. It's more accessible off the motorway there, rather than sort of driving into the city more. So I feel the likes of most of the players that live up in Formby area will be very happy with the move, and probably cuts down their travel time by half, I would imagine. So yeah, they might go past the turn off. That might be quite a common theme of just going past it on the and then coming back up and having to go through the industrial park. I'm sure some of them might be a little bit like, where on earth am I going, the first time they head to the academy area or the AXA training centre. But yeah, Keith, on the wind factor, I do believe that they had special, like, huge wind breaking style barriers imported from China, and I think that was one of the final things to happen in the last few weeks. So I think that's on some of the first team pitches.
The Kirby wind may be able to even get beyond that. That's how incredible it is.